Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. This is the first time I've done a Design Week event, so I'm really excited to be here with a new group of folks. My name is Lucy. I am an adventure cartoonist, which is a pretty rad job title, and one that I was really excited to figure out sometime in the early part of last year, not because I haven't been doing this for a long time, but because I finally figured out the right set of words to describe what I do. I've always had a hard time classifying myself, and I was really excited about it and thought, like, yes, this is it, this is the title, because I didn't really set out to be a business when I got into making comics out of college in 2012. But I'm trying to learn as I go, and I've learned a lot of business skills, and one of the things that I think most marketing or branding people would tell you is that you should have a clear, cohesive title that encompasses who you are and what you're about. It's a good idea. And so I thought, yes, this is like absolutely the one for me. And as I was writing this talk today, I realized that I'm probably gonna have to scrap it pretty soon. But we should back up. So when I started drawing comics, I was making these visual stories about my life as a crew member on an 18th century replica tall ship, which honestly is probably the closest thing I've ever had to a normal day job. I called myself a tall ship sailing cartoonist, which was a bit of a mouthful, but that got the point across, right? It was comics and tall ship sailing. I know, it's a ship, that's me. Very small, up there on the top yard. Anyway, so those comics eventually turned into this graphic novel, which is called Baggywrinkles, A Lubber's Guide to Life at Sea. And the book opened up all of these possibilities for me. I was able to work with other sailing vessels and tell stories and comics about what they were doing with their education programs or their outreach. And some people even read the book and then emailed me to say that they'd quit their jobs and run away to sea and were giving it all up to become sailors, which is very thrilling and also very terrifying, and I really hope it works out for them, and they don't hunt me down later. So I started branching out into other types of travel as well. Cartooning is often a very sedentary practice, but I, as you might be able to tell, am not a very sedentary type of person. So I was doing more stuff, I was going more places, and the whole title, Tall Ship Sailing Cartoonist thing got harder. I was bringing back these illustrated first-hand accounts of whitewater rafting in the Grand Canyon. There's a page from one of my comics about that. Going on oceanography expeditions in the Pacific Ocean, and going to Iceland to do landscape paintings of areas that I was exploring with other artists. And it wasn't just tall ships anymore. Telling people I was up for anything when they emailed to ask me what kind of stuff I did was leading to incredibly cool job opportunities, but I didn't have a job title that adequately conveyed that. If I just said, I'm a cartoonist, people would say, ah, a sedentary person, a hobbit, but that's not true. So I figured out the whole adventure cartoonist idea when I was here with this team of scientists on a research vessel crossing the Pacific Ocean for 3 weeks. And the people that I were with were wildly passionate about their work, all of these science communicators and technicians and outreach folks and educators. But for the scientists, at least, they came from a discipline that actively discouraged them from conveying that enthusiasm in writing. I don't know if any of you are scientists or know scientists, but scientific papers have to be scientific, and scientific means totally objective. So there's none of this, no arm waving, no Kermit arms. And I don't know if you can see my face really clearly here, so I'm just gonna blow it up for you. Like, I am 110% Kermit arms. That is my brand. But science communication is this vibrant, growing field. So it's one that we really need to be bolstering right now in particular, because the well-being of the whole planet is on the line, and it's very helpful to kind of tell people why that matters. And I realized while I was there that I had this ability to drop into exploratory spaces and create stories that were going to reach a wider audience of people and raise awareness. So like adventure cartoonist, yes, here I am on the boat drawing comics. It's a term that is broad enough to encompass all of the experiences that I'm having, but it also leaves room for future gigs that I don't really know the shape of yet. None of these trips have really been planned. But every time I think I figure this out, I take on some new project or I go down some rabbit hole that forces me to abandon everything that gets me even close to having some sort of singular brand, which is a little dispiriting. But it's often really enlightening and enjoyable in the process, and so I'm kind of grappling with that right now, and that's what this talk is about. So this is my latest book. It is called 100 Demon Dialogues. It doesn't contain any exotic locations. I didn't travel anywhere fun to draw things that I saw out in the world. It is a collection of 100 comics drawn over the course of 100 days, and each of these individual little panels, that's all 100 I think, deal with things like imposter syndrome. They're all so amazing. There is no way we belong here. Does anyone feel like that? Yeah, me for sure. And I would have these conversations between this little creature who embodies that imposter syndrome, that anxiety, that fear of not being good enough, and myself. And you can see there's a little bit of splitting here because I have this anxiety inside me, but I'm able to talk to that creature on the page and say, you know, I hate to break it to you, but we absolutely do. I mean, I'm on stage. Like, otherwise there's been some horrible mistake, and I don't know, call security. Your indecision is going to drive everyone away, right? Anxiety, visual manifestations of things that we grapple with if we are anxious people. Feed me! But I get so much more done when I don't. This is technological burnout, the terrible pull between being a creator and having to share your life on the internet and also wanting to not do that all the time if you're like me and you like the outdoors. And time management, of course. I have enough time. Just the fallacy that we all kind of balance on forever and ever. So these and all the other fun, sexy internal challenges that we face basically every day, right? And when I began sharing these comics in 2017, the response was really overwhelming because I thought I was telling a personal story. I thought I was sharing something that just happened to me. But everyone who read the comics already knew the conversations that I was having, like, really intimately. And it turned out that all of us were grappling with the same inner voices. By the time I was drawing the final entry of the series, the impact of all of that community feedback had actually altered the project. Initially, I'd planned on ending it with kind of a navel-gazy thing where I busted in the door and found that my demon was beset by even smaller demons of his own, and it was this like demons all the way down kind of thing. But instead, it ended like this. Come on, I want to show you something. I hate surprises. Just trust me. And these were all people who sent in photographs over social media when I asked if they'd be willing to appear in the last panel of the comic. And that's the thing that makes us feel like we are slightly less alone in all of our anxiety. So we took the project to Kickstarter. Royal we, me and this demon, took the project to Kickstarter. And it funded, it did incredibly well, it was very exciting. And we just finished, more or less this week, sending out all of the books and the companion demon plush toys that I got to make, which is also extremely cool. And the comments that I've been getting now that the book is out in the world are really different. I mean, it's not that getting comments about people running away to sea and quitting their day job isn't fantastic, but I've had some stories that have really kind of rattled me. There was a 10-year-old who read the book and told her dad, "Oh, I know that feeling. I had no idea everyone else had the same thing." Which, like, imagine being 10 and not actually knowing. I mean, I joke about thinking that I don't think other people have these thoughts, but sure, I'm an adult. I know that other people experience self-doubt, but maybe at that age you don't? There was the parent of a child with OCD who told me that her daughter sleeps with the book on her pillow. And therapists who have gotten it and tell me that they use the plush toy to explain negative self-talk to their clients. So I'm about to go on tour and meet all of these people in person and have these conversations in person, and I just keep thinking I'm not qualified for this. I am not a therapist. I did not train in any of these fields, but it's difficult because I got comfortable with the idea of being an adventure cartoonist. I have a song and dance, right? I kind of did it at the start of this presentation. I can climb 80 feet up a mast, no problem. I am fearless in the face of seasickness. It happens to all of us. Vomiting is just a part of the job. But now I have to let go of all of this job that I finally built for myself, this title that I thought was going to make sense, and get rid of the pre-made slide decks and get rid of all the tried and true jokes and recognize that this process for this book is going to be really different. And from a branding and development perspective, I might actually be back at square one, which 7 years into a career is kind of dispiriting, but maybe it isn't a failing. Maybe it is a strength. And so for those of you who are grappling with changes in your own creative careers or job titles that have shifted out from under you, or maybe you've quit a job, or you're trying to start a business, or you wear 1,800 hats at once, you have my sympathy, and also this talk is for you. Across all of these projects, I keep learning that creative work is not an end in and of itself. It is a door opener, a bridge builder. The consistent magic happens when something I am fascinated by or moved by collides with some broader conversation. And very few of us tell stories only for ourselves. They are made to be shared with an audience, or even better, a community. So last month, I was working in Denmark with a group of students in a graphic storytelling program, which is another fancy word for comics. Speaking of job titles, every college program is trying to find a way to say comics without saying the dirty word comics. So they say graphic storytelling, or sequential art, or visual narrative. It's comics. And they were all completing these projects for various NGOs. It was like a final semester challenge. And in meeting after meeting, I was seeing how all of these artists were bringing so much to the table for groups who dealt with services like teen counseling and refugee integration and accessible healthcare. And it was really striking to me that we all have these different hats, right? I am an artist, I am a sailor, I am also a manager, and this is like just 3, and Lord knows there are many more, but the slide is too short, and I was too rushed. But our careers, especially if we're independent or we're small business owners, are made up of hundreds of skill sets. And those skills can bring extraordinary benefit to underserved populations and causes. Even just a couple well-executed visual aids can really transform a pitch for funding or community support or outreach, or they could make someone feel less alone, right? It doesn't have to have a particular institutional aim. It could just be that you putting something out there brings someone else a little bit of solace. Now, I spend a lot of time on the internet advocating for financial transparency, and I really believe in being paid what you're worth. I think it is a big challenge for independent creators. But I'm also trying to balance those thoughts right now with notions of paying things forward and volunteer work. And often we think of volunteering as, stuffing boxes at a food bank or canvassing in a neighborhood. And we tend to think of ourselves as independent creators as scrappy underdogs, right? We're like small business owners making it out there. But so many of us are still benefiting from systems of implicit privilege. And we are still part of an inherently unjust system. So the inequality gaps in our communities, whether race, gender, income, whatever, they are not going to self-correct. They are systemically perpetuated and deeply entrenched. And that means that it does take a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of concerted, definitive effort on our part to change them. And that's where it feels like volunteering or paying some of these skill sets that we've acquired forward could really lead to something. So I want us to consider the themes of Design Week, right, to connect, educate, and inspire, and think about how they map onto our own creative practices. I would like all of us to remember that our knowledge doesn't just have to enrich established in-crowds. It mustn't, right? If we only do the things that we're comfortable with, then those systems just keep rolling. And it behooves us to reach a little bit farther and move outside, to be more proactive in our aim to make Portland a kinder and wiser place. Because the tendency is to think that nobody is going to help, and we are part of a community, and communities help each other. So it falls on all of us at various times in our careers to relinquish what feels familiar and walk into new spaces, to ask, and most importantly, to listen for what needs doing, and then to start something new together. Thank you.